Greetings to everyone who's just joined us. Welcome to our seminar. We're going to leave it a couple more minutes just to get some more people time to log in and join us. Nice to have you with us. All right, welcome to everyone who's joined us for our webinar today. I was thinking of calling it the summer webinar series, but since most of us are not experiencing summer at the moment, we'll just call it the AxxonOne webinar. I'm just going to do some introductions quickly so everyone knows who's who on our panel. I'm Andrew Lamb. I'm the Business Development Manager for Axxonsoft UK. I'm joined by my boss, Yuri, a face that's probably familiar to a lot of you. And I've given him strict instructions today that he is allowed to interject and interrupt, not only because he's my boss, but because Yuri has a wealth of experience with this product. So he'll probably be able to make some poignant pointers instead of just having to listen to me drone on all the time. In the back end, we've got Sophia G and Fatima, who have helped set the entire webinar up. They've helped with sending out invitations, and they're going to be creating a poll for everyone to answer at the end of the session, and keeping tabs on everything as well while we go through the presentation. So just a bit of an agenda for today's session. So I'm going to do a brief overview of who Axxonsoft is, where we come from, what we do. Then we'll go over a bit of an overview of what the AxxonOne product does. And from there on, we're going to search through a little bit of our unique selling points that make us a little different from the glut of other VMS products that appear in the marketplace. We'll be looking at some of the intelligent search features, which are really useful when you consider most of searching is done post-factum these days. A look at some of the complex analytics. We also want to show you of where the VMS is going to in the future, so products that are coming up. And then we're also going to touch on some of our support advantages, which could be considered valid, unique selling points. And there's also an underwriting of our commitment to our product through you, our partners. We'll cover how the licensing is done, how simple it is to put projects together. And then at the end of the session, we'll have a few examples and a bit of a Q&A session. And also we're going to be doing the poll. So if you guys could please give us some feedback, it's always welcome. And it also helps us to understand where we need to focus on in the future. So Axxonsoft has been around for quite some time, and this little video will just show you a little bit about where we've been, where we are, and where we're going to. Some of these numbers are a bit old. We've certainly got more than 13,000 customers worldwide. The project numbers have increased a lot. And certainly from our offices, I know it says 32 there, but that doesn't include all of our development offices. In fact, at our kickoff earlier this year, we had, I think, representation from over 40 offices. Axxonsoft has been in the industry for the last 25 years. We're not new to it. And as far back as 1996, we started doing video analytics. We've increased our product set to include things like PSIM, which is a physical security integration management system, which started way back in 2003. And we did the AI analytics as early as 2017. So we're certainly not new in this business. And mid last year, we introduced the AxxonOne product. And where we're going to with the future of the product is quite important. And I'll show you exactly how that works through our next slide. So if we have a look at the overview of what our architecture does, in some cases, people say, well, a VMS is a VMS is a VMS, and that is true to some degree. And in some cases, in many of the cases, you will see, Yuri, can you see my mouse, yeah? Okay, perfect. So in most cases, you'll find that a simple security or CCTV solution consists of only these two things, which is a local server with operators and video surveillance. That's where basically what it boils down to when someone's doing video management by recording video footage and maintaining it. But what people don't do is they don't extend as far as using access control and fire alarm intrusion detection systems into the VMS system, which is where we're moving to. When you look at an enterprise type of environment where it's not just one site, it's multiple sites, the question starts being raised is how do we connect all of those sites together and how do we manage them, potentially from a single point? And AxxonOne, sitting down here, basically covers all of those sites and allows you to manage them. We even have AxxonNet, which I'll get into more details a little bit later, which allows you to connect to all of your servers and maintain them from a single place. You can then add things like a mobile client. You can manage all of the video walls throughout your entire environment through a web client or through mobile clients. So the big story here is the scalability is unlimited. And this is partly due to the fact that everyone's moving towards cloud-based architecture. We'll get into a little bit more details about that now. But if you're just using simple VMS or a NVR type of environment, you're basically limited to doing just these things. And that is not where the security industry is moving. Axxonsoft has made a strong commitment to move towards being able to manage your remote systems and very large enterprise systems, not just smaller systems. So unified architecture is the key to it. I don't know why, but I'm getting a delay on my slides here. Okay. I'll go over this. There's a video that goes along with this, but the interface from Axxon Next has not changed a great deal. The layouts are very similar. The alarm panel's been adjusted. We've added things like an auto discovery wizard, which will make it a lot easier for people to configure and set it up. For those of you that have used Axxon Next before, most of this will be familiar. You're able to create your own layouts and put things, cameras where you want them. We also have the map that appears at the bottom, and you can do exporting from those layouts. There's a lot of similar features. You won't notice a lot of them in the new product, but there are some under the hood activities that make it a bit more complex than what it used to be. The dynamic layouts are still there, as I mentioned, so you can set up layouts for any of your users, your operators, and you can lock them down so they can only see what's relevant to them. You can add things like storyboards, you can add links to websites, you can have maps created on them, and you can customize them pretty much in an unlimited scale. You can change where your alarm panels and everything is, and you can add cameras very simply and easily. A feature of our 3D map, which has been in place for quite some time and is now being expanded to add multi-story maps. So if you have a building that's got 3 or 4 stories, you can have maps in the same location that represent each one of those floors. And it's quite useful for people that are, or operators that are new to the business. You can actually put them on the map, create the video of the actual environment, so it fully immerses the operator in where that camera is looking. So even if an operator is not familiar with the site 100%, at least from the map and creation of the videos, they can see where the cameras are looking, and it actually involves them in an immersive type of manner. Obviously, the alarm boards and things all appear where they should be, and you can change them to suit. So when we start talking about cloud, and this is probably something that's really relevant at the moment, there's a lot of emphasis on cloud-based computing, on virtual security as a service, virtual software as a service. We already provide, with our basic product AxxonOne, we provide cloud management through our AxxonNet, which basically allows you to put all of your information regarding your enterprise environment in one place and be able to manage it in the same way you would be able to on site. The video will just go through how you operate, and this is free to all of the AxxonOne users. You basically create a token on the domain, you add all of the sites that you have, and all of a sudden you can see them on your AxxonNet portal. You can even see it through mobile clients. So anyone who wants to manage remote sites can do so just through our AxxonNet. Not only that, but it also creates reports, which I'll ask Yuri to go into a little bit more detail on in a little while. So yeah, you can basically manage everything. And this is part of our offering as AxxonOne. You get it as free as a service, and it's run through our own private cloud. It includes a web client, and our web client is fairly comprehensive. In many cases with a VMS, you'll find a web client has some limitations in what it can and cannot do. Our web client is very complex, and it looks almost exactly as the same as the solid client. And as long as your connectivity is there, you can do all the things like select layouts, create layouts, manage users, manage roles, and you can also set search features just from our web client. So it's a very complex web client. So it means you don't have to have a full client on every single operator station. So now we get down to where the difference is between ourselves and what our competitors have to offer. If you consider that most of the analytics that we offer are all built into our system, they're all built and managed by us and designed by us. And when we start looking at intelligent searching, we have some advantages to people that are just manually searching through information. So if there's ever an event or an investigation that goes on, what often happens is people have to go through and sift their way through hours and hours of video footage to look for any incidents or any engagement that may have taken place. What we offer is a way to do that without actually having to sift through all of that information. Because the analytics are generating metadata, which is recorded along with the video, you can start creating scenarios where you want to go post-factum or forensically and look for events, maybe something as simple as line crossing. And you can go through your recorded video, set up parameters like, I want to see if a person is moving in a specific direction and crosses that line. And with a click of a button, you get thumbnails of every single incident where somebody may have crossed that line in a particular direction. You can then start narrowing it down to even more search parameters, which will say, I want to find something of a specific type, like a vehicle. So then it excludes all of the people that went through that area and just includes vehicles moving in the same direction. And it'll give you the thumbnails once again, and you can see the recorded video and export that recorded video as you need it. There are many, many, many different ways you can change the functionality of this just by using the objects that we have. For example, now we're looking specifically for a car within a certain color range. You've now narrowed down your search criteria to include things that you're specifically looking for. And now if you take this in comparison to having to do this with 10 cameras looking in different places and trying to find that same thing, you can see where this intelligent search can help. It'll even look for multiple objects in a certain area. So you can create an area of interest. And let's say I wanted to look for 4 people that were in that area. Give me every single example of where 4 people, and you set the counter, entered that area. And again, you get a thumbnail with recorded video that shows 4 people in that area. So once again, not having to sift through hours and hours of video to find specific parameters. And provided you've had the metadata running, there's very few limitations as to what you can actually search for. In this case, we're looking for groups of people that moved from one point to the next. So you create point 1 or area 1, and then you create area 2 and say, I want to know how many people appeared in one area and then moved to a separate area. Once again, once you've done the search parameters, it gives you every single instance of where that happened. So the point being here is that instead of having to trawl through the video, you've got it at your fingertips. We do the same with license plate recognition and license plate search. It should be mentioned at this point that license plate search and license plate functionality, in other words, if you want a car to appear at a gate that then opens, you have to do it by license plate recognition. And that will then trigger something that will actually open a gate. License plate search does not hold any metadata regarding that car or the person that operates it. All it will do is it will look for a specific number plate that appeared in your environment. So if you had 4 or 5 different entrances or exits and you want to see this car entered at 2 o'clock, I want to see every other area where that car was in my environment. It will then go and find every single environment or every single instance of that car, and you can search using that. The same happens for our facial recognition and search, and it should be mentioned at this point that we do have some fairly strong GDPR compliance requirements. So when you're doing facial recognition, such as in this example, you often have information regarding who that person is. And it's up to everybody to be able to understand whether they're compliant or not. The GDPR compliance doesn't want people to hold metadata such as what's on screen, where you know the person's name, their age, personal details. For that, you'd need to check that you're compliant. But with our facial search, all it does is look for similarity. So if it sees a person you can then go and say, okay, this person that I've just seen, I want to find every single example of where that person was seen somewhere else in my environment. And it will pick up every single face that it recognizes and then put it to you to determine whether that is the same person. But in all cases with facial search, we do not have any metadata. So it's exactly the same as if an operator went through all of that information looking specifically for faces. All that happens is it's looking for similarity. With the same, we can do things like privacy settings or face redaction, whatever you want to call it, where as long as that facial search is running, you can then go and say, I want to exclude people or objects from a specific area, and I don't want people to see this. This is very common when people submit video footage for investigation, where whoever they're submitting to it does not need to see people that shouldn't be in the line of sight, or they shouldn't be able to identify a person. You can see in the example on the right where you've created points of interest or an object to follow, and it'll automatically redact that object, either a face or an object. Again, with GDPR compliance, it's up to individual customers to make sure that they are meeting those compliance requirements. So all of those features, I'll show you in a little while when we go through the licensing. All of those features are available with our intelligence search pack, which we call the AI feature and reporting pack. It is a form of analytics, but it's not a complex analytic. What we do have is a suite of analytics that can be added to whatever licensing scheme you've purchased. And I'll go through some of those now just so that you can see what they do. One of the most relevant ones and we find a lot of interest with this is where we do behavior analytics. Essentially what the system is doing is building a skeleton of a human being so that you can see what pose it's in, whether it's bending down, falling down with hands in the air, or you can create a panic type situation where it recognizes when you're in duress, and it'll know that signals something that needs attention. In this video, you can see a man down. So if somebody's working as a lone worker or in a factory or somewhere on the floor on their own, and something happens to them, your alarm will be triggered. In this case, tampering. We know people stand at ATMs. If they're leaning down, there's probably something suspicious going on. In this environment, people raise arms can be alerted as an alarm function and will trigger a response. Fortunately, we don't have too much of that in this part of the world, but it is relevant. And here you can do things like queue detection. So if your maximum allowance is exceeded with people in an area, you can then trigger an alarm to say we need to do something. From a health and safety perspective, if people aren't holding a handrail and they fall down the stairs, well, automatically you've got an argument saying we're not responsible because somebody wasn't doing what they were supposed to be doing. Now, this functionality, every time we do this on shows or exhibitions, we get a lot of response of people that say, can it do this, can it do that? And it's limitless, really, with what people want to do with it. We've got an initiative with one of our partners at the moment who's working specifically with lone worker safety. If you want to know more about that, by all means, let us know in the poll afterwards. We're quite happy to share that information with you. We also do basic object detection, where you can classify different things and watch only those things. For example, parking, where it's only detecting vehicles. You can put time limits. A lot of people are using this to do fining in councils. In this case, a very simple thing where we've taught the system to understand that train wheels need to be counted as objects, but not people. So it differentiates and can do counting. And that leads us into things like customized AI analytics. With analytics, one needs to consider that there's very little out of the box or plug and play with analytics. Every single environment is different. We understand that. And what we do is we can customize the analytics to be looking for things that you want to specify or your customer wants to specify to look for. In this example, our customer wanted to be able to accurately measure how many train carts were in view at any particular time. I believe this customer also went on to having detection of the serial numbers on each one of those so that they could count them and could also track where they're going. Right here in the UK, we have one customer using it in their depots to be able to count and accurately see where things are. This customer didn't want to count people, he wanted to count his livestock. And you can see after receiving video from him and training the AI, it becomes extremely accurate as to how they can count and make sure that all of those livestock items are kept in check. So that's another thing that we do that some of our other competitors don't do, is we actually can train the analytics to do what you want it to do. PPE control, very important these days, specifically on building sites or in warehouses. In this example, where somebody's on a construction site, on the bottom left, you'll see a guy without a helmet. Immediately an alarm is triggered and that person can be told to do it. This guy's just taken off his high-vis vest, and the minute that he does it, there's automatically an alert. And you can then do things like send an alert, send an email with a snapshot to someone at health and safety and say, we've got a breach, and then obviously they can go down and do something about it. This is something that is quite relevant. It's not limited to point of sale, although we've got the video which does show the point of sale, where we can inject data, whether it's from point of sale, whether it's from a weighbridge, whether it's from a metering system, so that you can go back and actually track information that's been injected into the video. So if you wanted to look in an example where you've got a weighbridge, if you wanted to see vehicles that were over 1.5 tons, you'd be able to take the information from the weighbridge that's injected into the video and be able to search. Instead of searching for video, you can search through transactional data. In the case on screen where somebody's using point of sale, you can go and have a look at maybe the total of the transaction and go and look, set a time of interval and say, I want to see every 20 seconds before or after that. So you can get an understanding of what was done in that specific transaction. We do things like visitors counting, which is glorified people counting. One must be aware, though, that this is only accurate when your camera's field of view is accurate. But we do have examples where people just want to get numbers of people that have moved in and out of a specific doorway. The most popular way to do this, or the one that provides the most accuracy, is to have bird's eye view or top-down camera views to reveal accuracy. And then all of those statistics can be used as part of our reporting that can then be sent to somebody else. Where this is quite useful, a lot of these analytics are designed to be security features, but that doesn't mean that that's where they're limited to. A lot of your customers will have trouble funding their security projects. Why not use some of the information that's being provided to engage with the marketing people? In shops, for example, building heat maps of where people are moving can be really useful for the marketing department to be able to structure how the shop is designed, to maybe provide figures to end of aisle promotions to see where people are using it. So that means that you're not limited to saying to the security guys, we need this to be able to budget for. Why not go to the marketing people or the human resources people to say to them, we can use things like transactional data, we can use things like facial recognition to be able to give people access to restricted areas. Human resources may be interested in doing that and simplifying their job. So all of these analytics are not just there as a security feature, there's a lot of other applications that they can be used for as well. One of the newest and most popular integrations that we've done is with vape detection. We've worked with IP Video, who provide the Halo Smart Sensor, which is an exceptional piece of equipment that can be installed in things like bathrooms or areas where we know that noxious gases are. You're not allowed to install cameras in bathrooms by compliance for obvious reasons. And students smoking either vaping or illegal substances can get recorded. Not only that, but it detects high volume noises, so things like a gunshot or hammering. We have some instances of customers have been speaking to us about vandalizing, kids vandalizing things in schools and universities. Students are going in and bashing doors down, and all of these are picked up by the Halo Smart Sensor and reported as alarms. It's very difficult to be able to trick this. I met with Rick Hunady from IP Video at the security event 2 weeks ago, and he was telling me that some of these vape sensors that people are using, the kids have learned if you go and spray deodorant at it for a couple of minutes, it can't detect anything else. It's basically like putting a cover over the camera so that no one can see it. But this is what we've done, and this is impervious to that. The other great thing about this is that our integration levels for this is not just to receive alarms. You can actually configure the Halo Smart sensors from within the AxxonOne product. And this is something that's going to lead us into the next view of what's coming soon with AxxonOne. We did have the change from AxxonOne to Axxon Next, which people didn't really see as a major change because most of the things that were changing were happening underneath the hood. And this is where these changes will be seen in the future. So version 2 will be out very shortly. I think we're talking maybe end of this month or even end of next month. Nobody wants to release bug-filled software, so we're making sure that it isn't like that. But we've got things like similarity search. So if somebody's wearing specific items of clothing, if they've got a specific gait, if they've been seen before by the camera, you can then start looking at where that person was and start tracking him via his similarity. So you can point out on the map and say, okay, let's have a look for this particular person and saying where else was he? And it's looking for an image. And you show it, okay, from our previous recording, let's track this guy, or let's see where he was. Now, every single time that that person appeared, it'll give you on the map and on the recorded video in the alarm panel where a similar person was found. And you can add people to the list, so you can have more than one person. And if you've seen them together, you can get every instance of where that person was seen, which is really useful. You can even do it from in recorded video and say, look for this guy. That also leads into where you can see interaction. So if you've seen somebody who was recognized previously and say, okay, we want to go back and find out who this guy was speaking to and if he had any interaction with somebody during the time of his appearance. So it'll go and say, okay, I found every instance of him and I found every instance of him talking to somebody else. And now you can have a look at that video and go, did they pass something between them? In the time of COVID pandemic, you might want to track whether somebody had been seen with somebody else who may have been a reason why they'd contracted something. So there's a lot of scope for where we can use that sort of analytic. Multi-camera object tracking, again, through similarity search, you can identify areas on a map and on the camera and say, we want to be able to track people as they move from area to area. So you show the area of camera detection and you can point it out and then say, okay, let's add all of this information. We see this guy moving along here and you can see on the map where he's moving as well. And it's identified it as one particular person. I believe in this video, there's also where you have multiple people working. So it's looking for the same guy and it shows on the map where he is. And you can do this through your entire organization. So it starts looking for people simultaneously on different areas. Here's a new person it doesn't recognize. So it's added him to the list. And now you've got 2, 3, 4 people that you can start tracking along the way. And wherever they go in the environment, you can see where they are. Vehicle make and model recognition is something that's coming to the fore as well. People aren't just tracking by license plate. In some cases, it's not always easy to get the license plate, so we have other options. So you can specify a text and say, I'm looking for a specific vendor of vehicle. So we're searching, in this case, for an Audi. You click the button and it'll come up with every single example of where an Audi was detected. We don't know the number plate, but we do know that it's an Audi. So we're not looking for anything that might be GDPR restricted. In this case, we're looking for BMWs, and hey, presto, every single environment will come up with a BMW that appeared. The same thing for Ford. You can go on and on, but there we have different examples where a Ford was detected. So those are all the analytics that we're doing. There are a couple of other things that I'll show you in a minute where the forward progression of where the VMS is going is part and parcel of what happened with the under the hood enhancements to AxxonOne. I mentioned earlier that everybody's talking about cloud-based computing, and it's very relevant in some areas of the IT business, particularly where people are storing information, where you're moving to subscription-based models for software. The problem with security is that we are talking about incredibly large volumes of data. If you're just storing documents or your SQL databases online, it's very easy to store that because it's seen as particular types of information. If you think about opening up 300 cameras on site and starting to record that video at very high resolution, the amount of data that's being pushed across networks, which means there has to be bandwidth capability, and then secondly, getting it stored into a platform that recognizes it is massively important. My personal feeling is that although cloud-based computing is already upon us, I think it's a little bit immature at the moment, specifically for video type of applications, but there's no point in ignoring it because this is what's going to happen. Now, if you have a look at how some of the people on the market like Microsoft Azure or Amazon Web Services charge you for storing that data, the costs are not just, I want to have a petabyte of data. It's how you store that, how much information is being stored at any particular time. If you want to start having a look at recorded video, you're now getting charged for bringing that video back so that you can play on it. And it's starting to become very costly. We've worked very closely with Seagate, and in fact, 2 days ago, Yuri was involved in a webinar where we demonstrated how we are preparing how our video is transmitted to be compatible with the way that they do their live cloud surveillance storage systems. At this point in time, I think cloud computing is probably going to benefit from a hybrid type of environment where people have on-prem video management systems with storage, but they are using the cloud to store certain parts of their data. So things that are maybe relevant to an investigation, they don't want it to be on-prem, they want to store it offline. So they're moving to do that. So a hybrid situation is very good for a video management environment or a CCTV environment. And we're seeing a lot of areas where people are starting to use that. So coming soon is going to be how our cloud storage ready by utilizing object storage, etc., to be compliant with our partners who do cloud storage. This slide is probably the big one. This is one that I consider to be a major future for our product, as well as for how people are going to be utilizing video management software to be able to integrate with other systems. Now, the word integration is very loosely used because people will say, are you integrated with this? The answer could be yes and no. When you say integration, do we just want to get alarms from a subsystem like access control and to be able to create an alarm in our system? Or do we want to manage that access control system or fire alarm system from within our software? Historically, if you wanted to do that, you'd have to install a PSIM. And PSIMs are by their design incredibly expensive, but what they do is you'd have a VMS system, an access control, an intrusion detection system, many other systems that fall underneath the PSIM, and the PSIM manages all of those. And when I say manages, we're talking about doing configuration of subsystems from within the PSIM. Now, what AxxonOne is doing with our access control and fire alarm integration is we're allowing you to do that with a VMS. So you don't have to go out and buy a PSIM and a VMS. So what you do is you buy the AxxonOne solution, and provided it's one of the ones that we've integrated with or planning to integrate with, we can manage all of those subsystems from within the AxxonOne. How does this benefit people? Well, if you manage an environment or a monitoring station where you've got operators who are working with access control, you've got operators working with a VMS, you've got operators who work the intrusion detection system, you have to go from one system to the next to be able to do all the management. With this solution, people can do it with one system, one set of operators. The subsystems still operate, but they are now controlled by using our solution. I'm just going to stay on that for a second. As I mentioned, normally you'd have to do this with a full-blown PSIM. And if you go and have a look at all of the PSIMs that are on the marketplace at the moment, none of them have a VMS built into them. So you'd have to go and buy a VMS anyway. What we are offering is this solution, which can be customized, even if it's a system that we don't currently integrate it with. If you want it, or the project demands that we do it, we will do that. We do all of the development in-house, and we'd obviously need to work with that subsystem vendor to be able to do that. Yuri, just at a guess, or just at as an example, how many subsystems do we integrate with at the moment with our PSIM product? Not with AxxonOne.
It's
probably over 40.
Right.
Huh?
Yeah, I mean, vendors, in terms of IP devices, like 15,000 and counting. In terms of vendors, yeah, 40 plus. So all the major vendors on the market are already been integrated. Just to mention, we are, our integration sometimes is project-led. So for example, even though we haven't integrated a specific system, third-party system, we will certainly consider it if you have got a requirement for a project. Obviously, the timescales will depend on the business case, but we do respond to our clients' requests, our partners' requests to integrate, and we've done so in the past, and we've done it quite quickly, depending on our resources. But yes, it's none of the systems are off the table really. So even the legacy ones, one of the advantages of our integration approach really is the ability to support legacy systems. Once we integrate that into our drivers pack, that system is supported with the future versions of our software. Unlike some of the alternative products on the market to us, where they start discontinuing legacy systems, and which obviously forces people to do a bigger upgrade path into the surrounding infrastructure, peripherals infrastructure of a security system.
Okay, perfect. Thanks. So yeah, just to reiterate, this slide is basically the reason why Axxon changed from Axxon Next to AxxonOne. It's because of all of this, and it has to be, it's an under the hood upgrade. But when you start talking about integration, by all means, talk to us. We've done a few projects already where we've integrated with things like Salto, which is the access control systems, with Texacom, which is an intrusion detection system. I think there's quite a few of the Honeywell subsystems that we already integrate with. So there's no limit. So by all means, ask. And when you look at the alternatives or the competitors, when you talk about integration, if it's to this depth, I'd be very, very surprised, because most of them are just, yes, we take alarms and that's about it. So that boils down to AxxonOne and our additions. One of the things that's come up is, since we changed from Axxon Next to AxxonOne, we've had some changes in the names of our product. And I want to help you guys understand how the products work in our environment so that you can choose the right ones. If you have a look at what we've got Professional, Enterprise, and Unified. They were previously Professional, Universe, and Enterprise, or something to that effect. That's all gone now. And if you have a look at even Professional, which is the entry-level product now, maximum number of servers is 30. So even as a base model, this is an enterprise product. The number of cameras is unlimited. And you get all of these features that are included in our AI feature and reporting pack. All of these features are included with the base model. And if you have a look, I've put the prices up here. Obviously, keep this under your hat. We're showing you this. This is MSRP pricing. I would be very surprised if you get this sort of functionality about through anything else on the marketplace. I mentioned the AxxonNet cloud services and reports. That's all included. If you start wanting more functionality, the enterprise product will give you things like storage replication, failover, directory services. And then when we start looking at the unified includes things like, sorry, I'll just go to this slide, includes all of the analytics modules that you'd want. The only thing it will add as an addition is data center domain unification, which is probably not something we're going to get engaged with right now, but by all means ask. So when we spoke about the AxxonOne features and report license pack, all of these search functionalities and analytics are included in Enterprise and Universe. You can add them onto Professional, and I'll go through how that works in a minute, but they're included in all of the other packages. Even if you have Professional, if you want to add complex analytics, you can do so. It's an add-on product, and all you need to do is license the number of cameras that you want to put it on. You don't have to have all of them on there. in the future, with the discussion we had regarding access control system and fire alarm perimeter intrusion detection systems, all of these are add-ons to all of the products. You don't need to go and buy Axxon Unified to be able to do this. Even if you've got professional, you can add these integrations on with add-ons. The only thing you cannot do is the similarity search and the data center domain unification solutions. But certainly even on the entry-level product, if you want to do the integration, you can. I'm going to briefly demonstrate in this slide how you go about selecting what it is that your customers want. If you have a look at the basic requirements of the functionality that your customer wants, ask these questions. Do you need a highly scalable VMS with unlimited cameras, perpetual licensing, and no annual fees, plus genuine vendor-assisted support? If that's what you need, then you go into the additions and you get base licenses of professional. You cannot have a mixed environment. If you've got 100 cameras, you buy 100 professional licenses and that's it. You don't need to buy server licenses. You don't need to buy management server licenses. You don't need to buy recording server licenses. How many cameras do you have? 100. That's what you buy. And you buy professional if you want those features and functionalities. If you want to add the analytic search or the intelligent search functionality, you need to add just that specific part number, which gives you the intelligent search, and you don't need to buy it for every camera. So if you've got 100 licenses or 100 cameras and you want to do it on 10 of them, all you need to buy is 100 professional licenses plus 10 of the analytics licenses for the intelligent search. Now, if you start talking about customers wanting more out of their VMS, in other words, they want to do failover, they want directory integration, they want to do storage replication in the event of failovers or redundancy, or if they want to do very complex video wall management systems, then what they buy is the enterprise solution. If they want even more functionality like domain unification, being able to do analytics from external sources, third-party integration as standard. If they want to do all of those things, then they buy Unified. It should be worthwhile pointing out at this point, if they buy Enterprise or Unified, they get the intelligent search or the feature and report pack as standard. So they don't need to add anything else. If you want to start doing complex analytics, like face recognition, license plate recognition, intrusion detection integration, you buy them as separate licenses. And my advice to you is that Yuri and I always welcome any opportunity to help you put together what it is that you need for your customers' requirements. So by all means, reach out to us and we will be happily chat to you about that. A lot of questions recently on how we activate the licenses. It's very simple. The most basic one is by hardware identification. So when you're looking to install licenses for your customer, all you do is install the Axxonsoft software on the hardware and send an activation request from the installation. It will then determine what hardware is involved in that server, and it will send us a discovery tool which has identified what CPU, what memory, what hard drives you're using, and then you license the system through that. We will then send a license through the mail that helps you to set up the system and is valid for that system. The problem with this system is that if you have hardware failures, in other words, if a hard drive fails and you want to replace it, we have to reissue licenses. So what we recommend is moving to either an online solution, which is basically a licensing server that exists in our network. And all that happens is that the licenses are issued to that licensing server, and your system goes and regularly checks to see what systems you have in place. The other advantage of this system is you can see at a glance which servers are in your environment, and you can see which licenses you've consumed and how many, and you can see where they've been consumed. So you can see which features of the licenses are owned by which systems, and it makes it very easy to upgrade. All we do is upload new licenses to the server, and automatically you've got access to those. The problem we find with this is people say, oh, my CCTV system is offline and we don't want it offline and we're worried about security. I don't think that's a problem. When people are looking at cloud-based computing, if that's a big problem, well, you're never going to be able to use cloud-based computing. Obviously, we make it as secure as possible, and typically those are read requests, not downloads, so it's normally pretty secure. The third option, which is the one that we favor for the meantime, is to be able to use a dongle. essentially what the dongle does is becomes a replacement for the hardware ID. So the licenses that we issue are tied to that dongle. The great part about this is if you have a hardware failure and you need to install a new server, all you do is you take the dongle out of the previous server, install it into a new piece of hardware, install the software, and hey presto, add the license, and you've got that functionality back. The only thing you'd obviously struggle with is if you haven't made a backup of your configuration settings, well, that's something that you should do as standard anyway. So those are the different ways that we license it. The last point that I wanted to make regarding our USPs is maintenance support. I would challenge that there's very few vendors on the marketplace that would assist partners who don't have a contract with them. I would challenge that anyone who has a system and phones the vendor to say, hey, I need help because I can't get hold of my systems integrator or they're no longer existent. There's very few people who would actually help. We do that even to the end user level. The other consideration is we don't charge for maintenance fees for any of our software. So you don't need to buy an annual support pack or a service pack or a upgrade support pack. We don't do that. In fact, AxxonOne version 2.0, Yuri will correct me here. I think that's going to be a free upgrade, correct? But without the modules.
Well, yeah, it's a free upgrade. If there is a license misalignment, we just regenerate license and that's it. There's no cost to that.
Okay, so yeah, as you can see, we don't charge for long-term support. Ultimately, though, if you're a distributor or a system integrator, what we prefer is that you sign SLAs with your customers, because that's revenue that you should be getting from maintaining not just the software system. You should be maintaining their hardware systems, the cameras, the cabling, the switches, and the software support should be there. What you need to know from this is that you will always have access to our support systems, usually online, but by all means, if there's urgent problems, get in touch with us and we'll help book a ticket so that you can get your problem sorted out. So our hour is up. I'm hoping that it was informative for everybody. I'm glad it wasn't Panto style, otherwise I might have been in trouble, but I want to just go over a recap of what the Axxonsoft value offerings are. There's a simple licensing structure. It's easy to put these solutions together. If you have a look at what you get for your money, there's no denying that we have a very cost-effective solution, particularly when it comes to analytics, which are not third-party bolt-ons, they're built by us. The intelligent search that every single one of your customers is looking for. If you're doing forensic searching, why go trawling through hours and hours of video footage when you can use AI to do it for you? Our complex analytics, as I mentioned before, are built in. They're not third party. They're owned by us and distributed by us, so they fit very nicely into the environment. Support, we're here to help you. Vendor assisted all the way to end user. And it certainly is an underwriting of how confident we are of our product and how we can support it. And lastly, the no ongoing fees. For some reason in this industry, people are allergic to having ongoing fees. I think that'll change in the future when people realize that subscription and cloud-based stuff is going to take over. But for now, if somebody's argument is, I don't want to see any long-term costs, then this is definitely a solution that they could use. So thank you very much, everyone, for attending. I hope it's been useful. Yuri and I are standing by to answer any questions. I think the poll is up, if I'm correct. I'm not sure if Sophia and the team have put that poll up yet, but please take the time to answer those questions. It's important to us. There you can see, I think it's come up now. Our email addresses are there. We'd also invite you to follow us on LinkedIn. We have an Axxonsoft UK page. We do have a broader Axxonsoft global site, which you're welcome to follow, but certainly the one in the UK is the one where most of our information is going to appear. So please join up. I think Sophia said she was going to put in the chat my contact details as well as Yuri's. I see there she's done it. Thank you very much, Sophia. So just copy down the details. The mobile numbers are there. Just get a hold of us anytime and we'll be happy to help you out. Yuri, anything from your side?
No, but I mean, our Q&A is open. So if our participants want to ask us a question, just type in Q&A and we'll get it answered. We can answer it right now or follow up with the answer. There's a couple of things I do want to mention about the cloud, for example. So obviously, we have got a solution called Build Your Own VSaaS. So this allows you to offer a cloud VMS to your customers. So if you've got a big client base, it might be something you might be interested in. So obviously custom branding and everything like that. But we also introducing more and more cloud functionality, cloud integrations, like Andrew's mentioned about the Seagate Live. That's something I think is quite unique to our partnership with Seagate and actually to the industry. For example, simple cloud storage, objects, cloud storage. There's obviously it's offered by Amazon, is offered by Microsoft and Google. Usually that involves you pay for the storage of the, the size of the storage that you need on a monthly basis, and also every time you send or receive data from that storage. So in terms of the security system, it's good if you want to archive and never touch it, and then maybe keep it for 6 years for whatever your regulations are. But if you want to use it in an interactive mode where you do forensic search on a regular basis, then it can be quite expensive. But Seagate Live, you only pay for storage; you don't pay for the data transfer. So that that's a considerable cost saving, and it's fully integrated with our VMS. So it kind of you might even look at it as almost like a hybrid solution as well, where you can have on-prem security system VMS, and then if you need to store videos for longer, for example, you've increased your number of cameras, but you don't want to start adding more hardware. So obviously that will shorten your archive depth accordingly, but then you can mitigate that by saving some of the videos, all the videos, into the cloud this way. So just a thought there. Another thing I want to mention about one of the unique advantages of why Axxonsoft. Why would you use Axxonsoft as a VMS compared to, you've got your NVRs, you've got some other VMSs on the market. Well, first of all, it's an open platform. So we work with every vendor, every technological partner that's in the market. And like I said, if there's somebody that we're not working already with, we're happy to explore this opportunity and add them to our supported partners list. And what that gives to our clients is the flexibility of deploying a right solution for the job, for the requirements. So we're not there isn't a lock-in situation where somebody would be forced to go down with a specific vendor just because of the integration or the functionality. For us, as long as the API of the third party supports the functionality you need from the integration, we will support that within our VMS as well. So yeah, it gives a lot more flexibility to use whatever system that works best for the environment. Sometimes the legacy systems, for the brownfield projects where you might be going through the upgrade path for the CCTV, but the access control or fire alarm or intruder panels, that might be considered in a couple of years' time. You can still get the functionality, the integration functionality with a VMS system without having to wait to upgrade those systems in a few years' time. That's a few words from me.
Okay, guys, thanks very much. Sophia, were there any questions that came up?
Yes, it seems that we have several questions. Just a second. I think the first one, how many hardware parameters need to change before the licensees become inoperable? Yeah,
okay, so that is a good question. Obviously, we're trying to avoid locking things down, but there are piracy restrictions that we have. So we've limited, and it depends on the weighting. If you've got CPUs, memory, GPUs, hard drives, a certain percentage of the weighting is put on each one of those items. So you might have one memory chip fail, in which case you put another one in, you can continue to operate. But if you have a motherboard failure, the likelihood it's going to stop working. And it's different for every single system, depending on how many hard drives you have. The weighting might be different per hard drive, depending on how many memory slots you have, which is why we're promoting people to either use the online server, or failing that, if they don't want to use an online service, to use the dongle. The dongle takes away a lot of that pain, because your entire system could fall over. You just boot up another PC, you plug the dongle in, add the licenses, and you're good to go again. So yeah, it depends, but yeah, we'd like not to limit it, but we are forced to, which is why we prefer the other two options.
Thank you, Andrew. And the second one, what is the difference between an enterprise VMS and NVR-based solutions?
Yeah, so I think Yuri covered a little bit of that as well. And I think the first slide that I showed with the environment covers it. NVRs are basically glorified video recorders, and they're great for single site, limited number of cameras, or single NVR type of environments where you just want to record. That's all you want to do, and it'll do that. But when you start looking at things like multiple sites with multiple servers on, the software that's provided with these things, although it's considered free, is often a little bit clunky when it comes to managing an enterprise-wide environment, and especially trying to manage that from a remote area. So if you're the manager and you've got 10 sites, each with 5 recorders on it, it becomes very difficult to manage. Whereas with a proper enterprise type of environment like this, you don't have that problem.
I'd like to add as well, there's an option to automate the system a lot further than the NVR systems. We've got role-based engines, obviously we've got the analytics that we can react to, and so on, and integration with third-party systems. So we could create some complex automation rules that will eliminate the amount of human interactions required. So, you know, for the mundane kind of tasks, and engage human operators at the appropriate time.
Okay, thanks, Yuri. Sophia, is that it? Anyone else?
Yes, I think that's all. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, sorry.
Just want to mention something regarding reports. I forgot to say. All this data that we generate, the metadata as well, obviously for real-time alerts, reactions, and so on, that's great. This data is also stored in a database, and we can use it for to generate reports for like footfall, you name it, like a list of vehicles that have entered with snap thumbnails and things like that.
Heat maps, that sort of thing, yeah.
Exactly, yeah. So it could be automated, it could be customized. So we've got quite a powerful reporting module that can extract some valuable insights from that data. And like Andrew mentioned earlier, this certainly expands the value add of the system across other departments in the organization, not just for security or for facility management. It could be for marketing, billing management, you name it. So there's the data points are increasing in the video and the security systems, and it's only right that we extract or process this data and extract valuable insights from it for other departments.
Okay, perfect. All right, well, we've gone over by about 3 or 4 minutes, so I'm quite glad that we managed to squeeze most of it in the time, and I'm glad that there were some questions. Hopefully everybody's answered the poll. So
sorry, we have one question.
Oh, okay.
I think, what access control in fire alarm system do you currently integrate with?
Yeah, as we mentioned, there's a whole host of them. To be quite frank, we've actually imported a lot of the ones that exist in our PSIM product, which is something you may or may not know about. That's a separate topic completely, but a lot of them we're importing or porting them over to our systems. But I think Yuri mentioned, you know, devices, thousands, but if you look at actual systems that we integrate with, there's 40 plus, and it's growing on a daily basis. And as mentioned by Yuri as well, if you have a project that we're not currently integrated with, if the project warrants it and we need to do it, we do that integration. It's time-based, developer-based activities that need to happen, but there might be specific things for that project that you want to integrate, and we're more than happy to do those to make sure. And as Yuri said, once that's been done, it's now part of our ecosystem. So if anybody comes along next time and wants the same sort of integration, it's out the box. I think that's it. Yeah, Giri, any further
Yeah.
on this?
No?
Thank you.
Okay, great. So thank you everyone for attending. I hope you've received some valuable insight. Thank you very much for Sophia and to Fatima for arranging the event and helping set it up and get all the invites out and for fielding those questions. Have a good day ahead and look forward to speaking to all of you soon.
Thank you, guys. It was a
Thank
pleasure.
you, everyone.
Goodbye.
Bye.